On this episode, I'm talking about how my faith has played a role in business, shed a couple tears, and talk about my top 3 spiritual gifts. I'll catch you on the inside. Welcome back, Bold Move Besties, to another episode of She Built Success. I am your host, Claudia, and if you are new here on She Built Success, I want you to go ahead and hit the subscribe button on YouTube or your audio podcast platform of choice because you're now officially a Bold Move Bestie, and I want you to get all notifications. All right, let's get into this episode. So, fun fact, 70% of entrepreneurs say that faith guides their business decisions. And for me, I'm no different. I'm actually in that 70%. And I wanted to talk today about how my faith has played a role in my business and its trajectory and its growth, even in its stagnation, because it's a real thing. So I'd say since 2014, 15, I was in a position where I would always every year come up with a word of the year. Like that was the thing for me. I wanted a word of the year. And so my words would evolve over the years to different things that I thought of that I felt would represent the year to come. And I would, try to position my business in that space to make sure that I'm in alignment with that word, my personal life in alignment with the word. And I'd say around 2020, actually 2019, 2020, I got to a point where I was like, this feels a bit off. Like something felt off. And what I realized in that off was that I wasn't really operating in alignment with what God wanted me to do in business versus what I wanted to do in business. And it wasn't so much I didn't actually know that that's what I was doing, but as I was in prayer, as I was doing devotionals and just having that meditation time, I recognized that I was not on the same path. I was not in alignment, if you will, with what I should be doing in business and even in personal. And so I want to talk about spiritual gifts. I've done an episode in the past about what I'm good at versus my gifts, and I'll link that episode as well. But it was me at that time. I was in a season where I was trying to figure out where exactly I fell in all of this. And what ended up happening is that I found out one of my gifts, and I'll get into that in a second. But I really want to drive home this point here. When I was thinking or meditating about, so I'm in IT. My background is in IT. Since I can remember, I've always been a tech person. I love technology. I love cutting edge technology, but my career path was in IT. And I chose IT because for me, it was where the money was. That's frankly what it was. It wasn't necessarily while I like the cutting edge technology aspect of things, it wasn't oh my gosh, this is exactly what I'm gonna do. No, I was good at it. I was something that I could do, something that I knew earned money, but it was never really, I never consulted God and was like, dude, is this what you want me to do? And I can say, I remember I wanted to get into IT from, middle school. I remember saying, I told my cousin one time at our Christmas party, we have a family Christmas gathering. I remember they were asking, well, do you know what school you want to go to? Mind you, I'm in middle school, but I've always been a planner or a projector in terms of trying to stay ahead and be proactive. And so I remember him asking me, do you know what schools you're looking at? And I was like, oh yeah, for sure. I want to go to MIT. Yeah, I ain't go to MIT, but I wanted to go to MIT to study IT. And to me at that time, that's what I wanted to do. And I still ended up studying computer info systems, and I got my BS in business with a minor in computer info systems, and then I got my master's in applied IT. So I still was in that IT space, and I did good at it. I had internships in IT, but what I was finding is I got to a point in my career, I'd say maybe almost 10 years into my career in IT, and I was just like, okay, I could do this, but it's not like, yeah, I love this. And I couldn't pinpoint what it was that felt off for me. So fast forward a little bit, and I opened up my first consultancy. And for those of you that are new here, I'll give a little story. So I did have a company in 2008 that did consulting as well in the IT space. But in 2011, my husband passed of a brain aneurysm. So my girl's father passed. And so 2011 forward, it was single mom and two girls. And it was then that I closed down my first consultancy and went back into corporate consulting and was doing consulting in that capacity. And then in 2014, I opened up my now company, still in IT. Again, this was like me thinking or wanting to do what I wanted to do. But it was never a frame of this is what I want to do and I've made the decision. I just felt like I was going down a path. It wasn't a negative path. I knew the money was there. And so I'm saying that because as I was reflecting in the more recent years about, what I am doing, what I'm good at versus my gifts, I was realizing that God wasn't included in or consulted with in any of this, in any of the trajectory of my business and what it looked like. And this is specifically now in the second iteration of my consultancy. And so I was sitting there and I was thinking and praying about it. And I'm like, okay, so if not IT, or do I continue this and kind of just let it be? I recognize that I was in the wrong. Now, I will say when my husband passed in 2011, there was anger. I did have a lot of questions. There was obviously, you go through the grief cycles. But for me, it was really like, why him, why us? Like, I can remember reflecting, and I know for sure, like the first thing when so when he passed, I actually found his body. I found him. My older daughter was not with me, which I'm thankful for. My younger daughter was 7 months, so she was with me, but she has no recollection of it. And I remember feeling like the first thing I thought was my kids wouldn't be able to say dad anymore. And I did talk about that in the first episode of She Built Success. And it was never me. I never felt like, oh my gosh, it's just me now. And it was literally, I remember my first thought was my older daughter at the time wouldn't be able to call her dad anymore. And that was a thing. And so with that, I was upset and I felt frustrated because I didn't understand, why did this have to happen to the girls? Why did this have to happen to me? We were newly married, 3 years in, so it's not like we were married for a long time. And so it shifted perspective. So I knew even going back into corporate, I had to go with what I knew, which was at the time IT, but there was still like, again, this is my reflections, but I feel like there was still well, God, you changed everything, so I have to figure this out. Instead of the thought pattern being, okay, well, God, you changed it. How do I, come into understanding what this now means for me and my family? And so for me in business wise, I still held on to IT because that's still what we do today. That is what we do. However, my perspective is different. And so in this whole prayer, I'd say within the past 3 years, I've done coaching a little bit in the online space. And I'm like, I used to resist it and be like, no, because people don't like to listen. And there's so many excuses. Like, I kid you not, this is all the things like that was coming to me. But then I would get people coming to me and saying, hey, you should talk about government contracting. You should maybe teach on it a little bit more. You should bring in, what you do know from IT or tech. I like systems and things. And you should bring in, coaching or consulting services for other small businesses. And I was very resistant to the point where I genuinely was at a crossroads where I'm like, do I continue IT or do I try to go over here? And for me, I'll be real with you, my thought was, I don't want to fail. Like, I don't want to disappoint you, God. I don't want to take this coaching thing on and then it not be what you want me to do. And I can remember my prayer time, like literally crying, like, I can't fail. I can't fail like on my own or I'm doing this for myself, but like, I can't fail. Like, I don't want to disappoint you, God. Like, I want to make sure that if this is the path that we're rolling with, like, I'm doing it because you're telling me to do it, not because like how we did with IT. And that was all me and about the money. And so, the transition has been, we still have government contracts. We're still in the IT space, but now we're looking at small businesses and doing the accelerator and coaching and government contracting because there was a gap. And I don't believe that I would have gotten the clarity that I received, and it was solidified more recently as far as getting into coaching, but I don't believe I would have gotten that clarity had I not been in prayer and in devotional and even repenting because I was wrong for thinking I could go figure it all out for myself. And so when I had this moment where I was, so my church, I attend church online. I am looking for a local church, but I do attend this church that I've been online with for years, and I am an actual member of that church. And so they sent out this, the way they called it was a survey, but I would call it a quiz. And it's like, what are your spiritual gifts? And so you're supposed to take this quiz in the context of like a church environment and how you show up in a church environment, and it'll identify like your top 3 spiritual gifts. And I'll put a link for where I took the quiz. I can't remember if it's free or if it's at a small cost, but nevertheless, I'll put the link below if you're interested in it. But it helped. I took the quiz and it identified what my top 3 spiritual gifts were. And in taking this quiz, when I took it, I was in a fasting period. And so when you're in fasting and prayer, like at least I'm gonna say me, when I'm in fasting and prayer, usually in that process, there's a lot more clarity around things. I hear things clearer, and not necessarily audibly, but because I know I used to struggle with that. Like I'd be like, when people be like they hear God's voice, like he's talking to you, like you hear like a "thou shalt not" kind of a thing. Like that's literally what I used to think. But no, it is whether it's through music, like I hear a lot of different lyrics or songs or words. For me, I hear it through others, sometimes through different sermons. So I get it in different modalities. So that when I say hear, that's what I mean by hear. But back to the spiritual gifts. So I took this quiz, and it identified my top 3 spiritual gifts. And so I'm going to glance down because I'm going to share with you what my top 3 spiritual gifts are. And it just, for me, further solidified that going down this coaching path is not of my own, let's go do it. It really is more God-led than me. So I'm going to read what my top 3 gifts are. And then I'm going to read a little excerpt of what those are. So after I took this quiz, it said that my top 3 gifts are administration, exhortation, and shepherding. Now, exhortation, I actually knew that was one of my gifts. I didn't know it was my top 3, but I found out last year that it was one of my gifts. And at the time, my understanding of exhortation is like to uplift others, to encourage others. Like that was my understanding. After I took this quiz, even though for me it ranks as number 2 out of my 3, it still is in alignment with what I was saying and some. So I'm gonna go back up to administration because I'm not gonna kid. When I first saw administration, I was like, I'm not a secretary. That's what I thought. But the quiz gives you like a readout, and it's a very long readout. Like I said, I'm gonna read an excerpt of what it is, but it gives you a readout of your gifts, your spiritual gifts. So my first one's administration, and it means one who steers or shepherds sheep. And there's a Greek word for it. I'm gonna attempt it. Y'all don't come at me. It's kubernesis, I believe, and that means one who shepherds sheep. And it says this expert had the responsibility of shepherding sheep. And as an administrator, you have the Spirit-given capacity and desire to serve God by organizing, administering, promoting, and leading others in various affairs. And so I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I love systems because I talked about that in other episodes. I love getting things together. I love helping others. Like I was like, okay, I understand that. And it goes on into much more of it. But that kind of, it was like, okay, yeah, you're going down the right path in coaching. And the next one, exhortation. Actually, before I go into exhortation, in taking this quiz during prayer and fasting, like I felt like this enormous sense of joy. Like I can't quite describe what it felt like. I remember, where was I going? I don't remember where I was going. I remember I took the quiz and I had to go somewhere. I just don't remember. It was just me in the truck. I remember that. I just don't remember where I had to go. But I remember I was driving out and I just felt like this overwhelming sense of joy and like excitement. Like, oh my God, this is what it feels like to be in alignment. This is what it feels like to understand what you're calling me for. This is what it feels like to be like going down the right path. And I don't know how to explain it other than that. It was like, for me, it was a lot of praise. It was a lot of just, there were tears, but happy tears, not sad tears. Like it was a very big mix of emotions, but it was like so exciting. And I was like, I wanted to call my friend and be like, yo, I figured this out. Okay. Every episode, apparently I cried. This is one of them. Not episode, every season, but, that feeling of joy, to know that I finally got it, or at least a phase of it. So for me, faith in business is a big thing. And whether or not this coaching aspect comes to fruition, the way that I'm currently presenting it is I'm okay with. But if that means it's in another capacity, I'm okay with that too. But being submitted to a calling is like crazy. Whew. All right, let's continue. So The second gift, the second spiritual gift that was a part of this whole quiz that I'm talking about was exhortation, or is exhortation. Like I said, I had an understanding of, very small understanding of that being one of my spiritual gifts. And so I want to read a little bit about, or an excerpt of what exhortation is, which is the output from this quiz. So it says, you are a how-to person. Like, that's what it says in air quotes. You have the capacity, the spirit given capacity and desire to serve God by motivating others to action and by urging them to pursue a course of conduct. In a teaching position, you're able to explain how to apply God's word. So for me, and it goes on and on and on and on. I mean, it's rather lengthy, so I'm not going to read it all. But it says, you're expressive in a group setting, and the team will tell you, yeah, I tend to be. You're expressive in a group setting. The group listens to you when you speak. You're comfortable working one-on-one or in groups. You are enthusiastic and talkative and enjoy encouraging others. Now, it's just an excerpt, but again, when I was reading this, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, that's me. And and it was just exciting. It was like, okay, I get it all. Like, this is all making sense. Now, mind you, I have taken other quizzes. I've taken DISC assessments, Enneagrams, what's the other one? Sally Hogshead has one, How to Fascinate, so Fascination Advantage. I'm pretty sure I'm forgetting one. So I've taken a number of quizzes, and I'm pretty familiar with where I fall in the spectrum of things. But like, the way this particular one spoke to me is just completely different and on another level. So to me, I'm like, oh my goodness, like, I'm embodying this whole thing. Like, this is me, like, because I remember I didn't say this part at the beginning of my prayer and fasting. Like, whenever I go into longer prayer and fast, I tend to pose a question. I have a lot of questions more often than not to God, but I'll try to pose like a focused question of something that either I'm praying about, or I need help understanding, or I want clarity on. And again, for me, it was, am I in alignment? Am I going down the right path that you're leading me on? I don't want to be out of alignment. Like, I know I always say that, like, I do not want to be out of alignment of your will for me, right? And so when I was reading through this, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in alignment. Oh my, like, I got really excited. I mean, it was just me. It's not like, my partner wasn't with me at the time. It was just me, and I'm taking this quiz. And so when I'm reading all this, I'm like, okay, yes. Okay, we're doing this. We're actually doing this. I'm in alignment with what you're asking me to do. And again, I don't know what it's going to look like here 10 years from now, but that's okay. Like, right now, I'm in alignment. And so those are my top two. And then my third one, which again, I was like, okay, yes, I'm still tracking to this coaching thing, is shepherding. And for me, it says, I'm going to give you a quick excerpt of what this one says. So it's talking about shepherding, and it's shepherding like shepherding sheep, like a herd in the Bible. That's kind of, there's a lot of metaphors with agriculture and farming and whatnot. And so it's talking about sheep. And so it's like, you tend to be a jack of all trades and a master of one, meaning you are usually dominant in one of your speaking gifts. And then as well, and I didn't talk about speaking gifts because that wasn't one of the ones that were highlighted. But when you take this quiz/survey, it'll rank you, but it'll give you your top three, but it'll rank you in all the areas. And so then it says you're often authoritative, which, yes, I think I've said before. I like to be bossy, not in a negative way, but I do that. I am that way. So you're often authoritative, more a leader than a follower, and expressive. You're composed and you're sensitive. Your pleasing personality draws people to you, and it goes on and on and on. Well, actually, I want to say this part. So you have a burden to see others learn and grow, and are protective of those under your care. Like, all of that is like, oh my gosh, this is it. And so those are my top three. When you take the quiz, if you decide to take the quiz, for me, it was an eye opener, or more of a confirmation, I suppose, than an eye opener. But in reading it, it spoke to, yes, it just like lit up the path. Like, yes, this is, you're okay. You're going right. Like, this is how it's supposed to be. And I'm like, okay. So I'm saying all that to say, I started at the top by talking about 70% of businesses have faith in, how they operate their day-to-day business, or, bring that into their business. And for me, I'm no different. And my homework for you, Bold Move Bestie, is to look at whether you're a spiritual person or not, look at what you put into your business and what the type of thought is that you give your business. And are you in alignment with that? So Bold Move Bestie, you have a little journaling moment. Go ahead and take that time to journal on that question. Are you in alignment in your business and your thought process, both to get the outcome that you're trying to achieve? Until next time, I catch you on the next episode of She Built Success. Bye. What's up, Bold Move Besties? Guess what I'm offering? Government contract coaching for small businesses. It is your opportunity to get the real, the relevant, and the way to do government contracting correctly with the federal, local, and state government. Inside, you will get details on how to start in government contracting all the way through winning your first contract, which is, by the way, not guaranteed, but we're trying to get you there. So if you're interested, please sign up in the link below, and I will catch you in the next cohort. Go ahead and apply today. Visit readyswipegov.com to get started.